Welcome, everybody, to this week's Thursday's Coaching Corner. Today, my special guest is Sean Moudry. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. It's been a while.
It's been, 11, 12 months?
Yeah.
13 months. Pre-COVID, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, it has been pre-COVID. So it's good to see you, man. And I'm glad to have you on because I know you do great things in the real estate coaching. And, I know our audience will be interested in learning more about your 16 strategies and about yourself. So tell us a little bit about where you're from and what you do.
Yeah, awesome, man. I appreciate it. So I am just south of Boulder, Colorado, a little west of Denver in a town called Arvada. I have been here for 27 years, I believe. And I've been in the real estate industry. I've been licensed in real estate since I was 21. So I got licensed at 21. So it was like 4 years ago because I look good. Do these look like 21-year-old line? 24?
Right. You don't look a day over 30, that's for sure.
No, believe it or not, man, this will be my 28th year in real estate.
Oh, wow.
28th year. Yeah. So, exciting, man, to be here and to share kind of some of the lessons I've learned.
Yeah, and to be in the industry that long, you have to know what you're doing. You have to be doing something right because, not a lot of folks make it past year one. So you're doing well.
That's a fact, man. That is a fact.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because new agents they just don't have the information.
Yeah,
that's what it is, and a lot of what we do with Mortflix and we want to do with Mortflix is bring a one-stop place where someone can find that information before it's too late. By the time you spend all that time in the industry and you try to find the people to follow and the people to listen to, it's almost too late for a lot of people.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the internet is a blessing and a curse, man, right? Like it's a blessing and a curse either way, because it's a blessing because we have access to all this information, but it's a curse because we have access to all this information.
Right.
And if you look at like education, they don't just send you into the library and say, read whatever you want. Right? What do you feel like reading today? Read wherever you want. Because if that was the case, we'd all be sitting there with Dr. Seuss, right? Or we'd be sitting there reading the books that are fun, right? Or the hot rod magazines and that kind of stuff. And we would never actually learn the lessons that we need to learn in order to get where we go. And so, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that new agents, new mortgage brokers, new title reps struggle with is structured information, structured training. It's a challenge out there.
Definitely. And I know you have what we call the 16 strategies. So let's talk a little bit about that and how that helps, new and, old alike.
It does too. Yeah. So believe it or not, so my career, I sold real estate for 16 years. I was a top producing real estate agent. I was in 30 Under 30 Realtor magazine. I was in the Hall of Fame at RE/MAX, all before I was 27 years old. So, I was doing 175, 180 deals a year in the 90s, man. That was back when we had paper contracts, dude. Like these agents today are like, oh, real estate's so hard. I'm like, are you kidding? Like we used to have to present counter proposals in person. Right. So I sold real estate for a long time. And then in 2009, I got into the brokerage side of the business. So I stopped selling real estate and I got into the running real estate brokerages, relaunching real estate brokerages. I owned 2 Keller Williams franchises I was an investor in, and I became a coach, right? So for 11 years, that's all I did was ran brokerages and coached. And as you know, with running a brokerage, it's all about recruiting, right? It's all about maintaining agent count. So I had to find a unique way to get in front of agents that wasn't the same crap that they heard. And I also wanted to give them a tool that was actually effective to help them grow their business, right? So those of you that are on here, that are mortgage professionals and title professionals, my wife's a title rep, so I know your struggles. This will work for you, right? This will work for you the same way that we developed it. So the idea behind this is I utilize the Myers-Briggs personality profile, right? So the Myers-Briggs was developed It actually came from a psychologist called Carl Jung, right? And Carl Jung observed that human beings had innate personalities and innate preferences. And he said, you know what? Everybody's not the same. Why are we doing everything the same? And so he started writing out and he identified the different personalities. So, which really didn't go anywhere at the time because, Sigmund Freud was like the big psychologist and he was more about experiences shape our realities, not our innate preferences. But Mitch, do you have kids? Yeah. He's
I got 3 kids.
Just needed to yell at one.
Yeah, I do. I have 3 children.
So did they have personalities that were innate in them? Or do you think that they were all just developed the same?
No.
Right?
My kids are all completely different.
Right? Yeah, like one comes out and they're like brave, right? They're courageous. They take chances. One comes out maybe a little risk averse. Maybe one is very creative, where another one might be more on an analytical scale. Maybe one is like very caring and nurturing, while the other one seems to kind of hold back and kind of analyze the situation, right? So right. Everybody kind of has these innate preferences that we have. Well, the challenge is what happens is as we progress through life, in order to get loved, right, either by our family, our parents, our spouse, the hot chick, the hot dude, whatever, in order to be loved, you have to act a certain way. In order to get paid, right, by your employer, right, you have to act a certain way, right? Or in order to get validated, patted on the back and appreciated, you have to act a certain way. So what happens is through life, as we move away from our preferential personality profiles and we start moving into a place where we're acting and being somebody that's outside of our comfort zone, which there's nothing wrong with that, okay? I'm not here to tell you that that's not okay. It's totally okay. You can act outside of your comfort zone for a period of time. But if you do that month over month and year over year, you can burn out, right? And you get tired. So the funny thing is people think I wrote this book to help new people. I actually wrote this book to help top producers. Because there's so many top producers that I met that hated their life. They were miserable. They were miserable because they learned the business a certain way. Well, one way is the only way to do it. And then, or they might have entrepreneurially figured out a way to do their business, right? Mortgage and real estate and title, hazard insurance, doesn't matter. They might have figured out a way to do it. And it was natural to them. And then they go to a training class. And in the training class, they're taught, you're doing it wrong, right? There's something wrong with you, which was exactly my experience because I had never been through a structured training program other than, the person who trained me, right? And then I'm this top producing agent and I go to this national event and they're teaching about real estate. And they're saying, oh yeah, you got to make cold calls. You got to do this. And I'm thinking, I've never made a cold call in my life.
Right.
I wouldn't even know what to say.
Yeah. One person's way is not everybody's way.
Right. And so what's interesting is I became a coach for that organization and I taught cold calling for 4 years, man. They had me on a plane 3 days a week teaching cold calling, which was funny because I'm sitting there thinking the whole time, this isn't how I would build my business. Right? Because it wasn't natural to me. It wasn't my preference. Right. So then I started thinking, well, what is it that is unique? What is unique about me that allowed me to perform in my superpower, in my strength, right? And then what are my weaknesses? Where are the areas that, I'm aware that I'm not doing a great job? Right? I'm aware that maybe I'm not quite as skilled as other people. Like other people just have talents that are better than me. Right. And I have talents that are better than them in other areas. But they have talents that are better than me in certain areas. And then what are my complete blind spots? What are the things about me and my personality that are completely not in my awareness? Right? Because those are the ones that knock you off the throne, right? It's not the It's not the fact that, you might lose your temper every now and then, and you got a temper. So when somebody says something, you go, oh God, I got to calm down. It's not, those aren't the things that knock you down. It's the things that are completely outside of your awareness that are kind of tied to your innate preferences or your personality, right? And so I went on a mission to learn about this and to get really, really granular and learn it on a deep level. So you with me so far?
Oh yeah.
So about, I don't know, 9 years ago, I went and got certified as a Myers-Briggs practitioner, and I started using the Myers-Briggs to evaluate the agents in my brokerage. Okay. So since then, between my coaching clients and my real estate brokerage, I've probably validated 1,000 Myers-Briggs. And I'm telling you, I validated people that are billionaires today, right? They are some of the top people in the industry. And so I got a really interesting opportunity to see their assessment, look at their strengths, look at their weaknesses, and talk to them about their strengths and weaknesses and learn how they adapted to achieve success, right?
Right.
And so it was a really, really crazy experience. So about a year and a half ago, prior about when you and I touched base, I finished the book because what I want to do is break down that experience into a way where somebody who is running a real estate brokerage, somebody who's coaching real estate agents or real estate agents by themselves, and the book's for anybody in sales, right? It's not for real estate agents, it's anybody in sales. So they can take this book, they get the assessment with the book. It's going to give them a basic Myers-Briggs. It's not the full version Myers-Briggs. It's not 100 questions, 45 minutes. You're not getting, you're not getting the validation, but you can go on and see the assessment. The book will then guide you to your 16 strategies personality profile, and then it'll also give you a sales strategy. Now, one of the mistakes people make is they go to the website, 16strategies.com, and they take the assessment, which gives you your sales personality, but you don't get the sales strategy unless you buy the book. Because all this money that I'm making off this book, I donate to mental health awareness. So I donate 100% of the proceeds to mental health awareness. And so I'm trying to get rich by helping other people.
Right. Yeah, we had on my podcast, we had Tim Davis, national coach for Movement Mortgage on.
Yeah.
And he talked about leadership through evaluation like that. So, for anyone that was on his team, he made them do those Myers-Briggs and stuff like that because it helped him determine, number one, what seat on the bus they should be in.
Yeah.
And number two, like what motivates them? Is it money? Is it appreciation? Is it, what is it that keeps them going? So I thought that was very interesting to sit down your team, make them fill that out and find out who they are. And that way you can make them the best fit for your company.
Yeah, the Myers-Briggs took off. They created the Myers-Briggs Assessment. It was Kimberly Briggs and Dr. Myers, right? So Myers was the mother. Kimberly Briggs was more of an entrepreneur in the 1940s.
Oh, wow.
And when the troops came back from World War II, all of a sudden, the women who had gone to work in the factories and the local stores and those kind of things were displaced. And so she created the Myers-Briggs Assessment based on Dr. Carl Jung's writings in order to help them find a place in the workforce. So now imagine from 1940 to 2020, how much research and how many books are available now. And that's what makes it such a great tool, because once you understand your preferences and you understand your personality types, you can, build that into, you can pick up a relationship book, right? And you can read about how your relationship interacts with your personality type as well as your spouse's. So there's so many facets of understanding, having a deeper understanding of really who you are, right?
Right.
So yeah, I agree. Anytime I hire somebody, it's the same thing. I'll give them the Myers-Briggs. We validate it. I definitely don't base my hiring decision on their Myers-Briggs, because people have taken so many personality assessments today. Like you give somebody a personality assessment who's going into a sales industry, they're going to answer it a certain way, right? Because they want the job.
Right.
So
right.
So like one of the common questions is if you're entering a room and there's 20 people in the room, are you going to engage the room as, are you going to go in and engage the room, or are you going to stand back and kind of observe the situation and you may or may not engage the room? Well, if you're applying for a sales job, what do you think the right answer is going to be? Right now, so for those reasons, you got to be careful about situationally making a decision based on those things. But the validation really is the key, because when you validate it and you ask somebody the questions, it says here on this assessment that, you have an introverted preference, right? Can you explain to me times that you're introverted, right? Can you explain to me times that you are extroverted? Because one of the things about the Myers-Briggs is very different is it's not that you're always one way.
Right.
It means you have a dominant preference, and then you have a secondary preference, and you flip between the two. So for me, I'm an extrovert, right? If you look at my Myers-Briggs, my extroversion preference is really high. But honestly, Mitch, I spend most of my time writing. I write 2,000 to 4,000 words a week between writing books and writing blogs and those kind of things. And that's sitting by myself, right? I'm not talking to anybody. And that's my favorite time. So people would say, oh, well, you like to sit and write. You must be an introvert. I'm not, right?
It's like my wife. She's like, hey, we got to go to this party. And I'm like, I don't want to go to a party. I don't even like going to parties. And then she's like, yeah, you say that. And then when we get there, you won't leave. And you're like talking and you're the social butterfly that wants to talk to every person there. And I'm like, hey, that is kind of counterproductive. My message of not wanting to go to being the one that's, talking to everybody.
Well, that's a great example of how we can flip our roles, So for me, like when you really deeply understand the Myers-Briggs, it kind of ranks 4 different things. One is introversion versus extroversion. But as we talked about, extroversion isn't outgoing and bubbly and talks a lot or overly expressive like the DISC profile, right? That's kind of extroversion on the DISC. Introversion and extroversion in the Myers-Briggs isn't really observable. Right? We're not talking about an observable introversion, extroversion. It's more about where are you interacting with people? At what times do you choose to interact and engage people? Like if I go to a party that I don't know anybody, I'm not talking, right? I'm dialing back, man. And that's because the way I make decisions. So my decision-making driver is thinking. It's logic, right? Where other people's is feeling, connection and empathy, right? So it's feeling. So for me, I walk into a room, my logic overrides and it says, you don't freaking know these people.
Right. Have a seat.
Have a seat. Take a bed, analyze the situation for a minute and figure out who you want to talk to. And I might go in and talk to 2 or 3 people and I might get out of there, right? I might boogie. Where somebody whose drive, their logical drive, or their thinking, or their decision-making drive is connection and empathy, and their extroversion, you combine those 2 together, boom, they're meeting everybody, right? So that's a difference between like a DISC and a Myers-Briggs. Is a Myers-Briggs will show you that, right? So the other thing the Myers-Briggs points out is how do you communicate to somebody? And in hiring, this one's extremely important because when you're communicating to somebody, you have people who are big picture, right? And then you have people that are super detail oriented, very granular. And then you have everybody in between, right? So you have this range.
Right.
So for instance, I'm a big picture person, right? You can put the plan out there and I'll connect the dots. I'll go, oh, I see it, right? My wife is as granular as you can get, like super detailed granular. So I talk about it like this. It's almost like if you look at a ladder and you say, hey, I want you to climb that ladder and go to the roof. If the ladder's missing, a couple rungs, I'm just going to go up that ladder. I'm going to just skip the other rungs, figure it out, right? My wife won't go up that ladder unless every single rung is there. And she might even look at the warning label. I read, where was this manufactured at, right? So she's that granular and that detailed in her processes and the way she takes in information. So knowing that in a leadership role is extremely important, because if you're communicating to somebody and you're a big picture, which a lot of leaders are, because they have to kind of anticipate what's over the mountain, right? They're kind of saying, oh, we're going here. But you're communicating to somebody who is concrete. That's the actual term that they use in the Myers-Briggs, is concrete in words. They're not going to move forward, and you're not going to understand why, right?
And give them all the instructions. They're not going to do it.
They're not going to do it. And you're going to think that they're being difficult and challenging, and it's actually your fault because you're not communicating. Right? You're going, hey, climb the ladder. And they're going, there's some missing rungs. And they go, no, it's fine. You'll figure it out. No, I won't.
It doesn't tell me the weight limit. It doesn't tell me how old this thing is.
Right. And in businesses, you need personalities. You need the big picture person who's going to make the decision to guide us forward. You're also going to need the person who's going to kind of keep an eye on things, right? Hey, do we bring food? Do we have water? Are we
right? There's a crack in this rung. Did you see that?
There's a crack in this rung. Yeah, you gotta have people in your organization that are looking out to make sure that things are going. And then the fourth piece of the Myers-Briggs is how somebody actually does the world. How do they execute on a plan, right? So, and this is really, really interesting right now, is because it's changed so much over the past 30 years. So 30 years ago, corporate culture, educational culture was you were extroverted, right? So you're outgoing, you're friendly, right? You solve problem with logic. You make your decisions with logic, not empathy, not emotion. And you are concrete in your decisions. You trust the process. You trust the past. You trust what you know, right?
Right.
And when you execute, you're given your orders, you make your decision, and you move forth with the information that you have, okay? And so in Myers-Briggs, that's called a judger. That's a judging, okay? It's not judgmental. People get it confused all the time. It's not judgmental. They call it judging. I don't know why. Whatever. Doesn't matter. So judging personality type, that's the person who's going to make the decision with the information that they have, move forward with their marching orders. Now, today, though, that's not corporate culture. That's not how it is anymore. So now it's still extroversion. It's still because you still got to be kind of outgoing and whatever. But now, big picture, the world's your oyster. Do whatever you want. You can be anything. You can do anything, right? And then feeling over logic. We got to put everybody's feelings first. We got to put emotions first, not logic first, right? We have to make sure everybody feels good, everybody feels safe. And then perceiving over judging, which is perceiving is, it's okay, you can get it in whenever you have it finished, right?
Right.
Which is completely different. I mean, it has flipped in 20 years. It's completely flipped. So when you look at like the Gen Xers versus the millennials versus the Gen Y, no wonder they're all like fighting all the time.
Right. And they all have completely different looks on everything.
So you can imagine in a leadership position, if your personality type is a TJ, thinking judger, to move forward. It's logical. We're moving forward with the information we have. And you hire a perceiving feeler, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a huge problem because you're going to say, move forward. I don't care. Get it done. And they're going to say, why? But what about the people? How does this affect other people? What about my free time? What about my lifestyle? And, is this the best way to do it? Because perceivers, different than judges, they'll make a decision and move forward with something, but they're going to do it in a unique way. They'll move forward with the decision, but as they're completing the decision, they're going to continue to take in information and then perform at the last minute, like a procrastinator, right? Which is a negative word in corporate culture, right? Oh, that person's a procrastinator.
Right. Sounds like my kids.
Yeah. Well, and why is that? Because we raise them, right? Well, who knows? We raised them, but maybe a bit of personal preference, but and it flows in and out. It's how do we show them love? How do we show them appreciation, right? How are they getting validated? If you have a kid who's like, I want that toy, and grabs the toy away, and you yell at the kid for taking the toy away, you're teaching your child to act as a different personality profile than might be in his nature. Good, bad, right, or wrong, right? I'm not saying, it's just how it is, right? The challenge shows up when you're not happy, okay? And that's the ultimate goal, is to find a balance for you by you having self-awareness of who you are. Where's my balance? Where's my center point of who I am? And at what times do I need to flex in one way or another in order to achieve what I want or what's expected of me, right? And then, so like a great example is I was hired by a company to do some prospecting for them, right? And they were having some challenges with some prospecting. It's actually Bruce Lund, who owns 90 Day Sales, right? He had 7,000 people in his database. And he had a class launching January 4th, and we're sitting there, it's like December 15th. And I'm off, right? I'm not working, right? I'm done. I'm like, my year's done. And we're sitting there, and he says, I got this course launching January 4th. And he says, I got these 7,000 people in the database, but I don't have time to get through them all. I said, I'll do it. You gonna pay me? I'll sit there and pound it out. So, but cold calling isn't my natural preference, right? I am a creative type. I like to write. I like to blog. I like to do those kind of things to generate the leads. I like marketing. That's was always my strength, is marketing and advertising. So here's what I do. I set a deadline for myself. I say, okay, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to make 3,000 calls a week for 2 weeks, right? I can do it for 2 weeks. I can flex out of preference for 2 weeks, right, in order to achieve the goal, right? It's very, very, very doable. But if I committed to doing that for any organization for a long period of time, in 90 days, 120 days, I'd probably be miserable.
Right. Yeah. It's easy to do it outside of your box for a little while, but to commit long term, you're eventually going to grow tired of it.
Yeah, and trust me, man, I counted down those days, man. I was like, almost done. I was counting the money too. I was like, oh yeah, another payday.
Right.
Yeah, so that's basically the essentials of the book, right? Is to walk you through that, help you out. Now, the key then to identifying the right lead generation really takes the next step of kind of getting on the phone with me, validating your Myers-Briggs, and then us having a conversation of what lead generation strategies are most likely going to fall into your personality type, right? That are going to be more natural to you. And then there is one other issue that you have to deal with, which is how fast do you need the money? Because, writing and blogging, as you know, right, is a great way to generate evergreen business that you get leads from an article you wrote 2 years ago, right? It's awesome. Love it. The problem is it took 2 years to get one lead.
Right.
So if you don't have a lot of time, you might have to flex into a different personality type for a period of time to get business in and generated, so you can then continue to build out what your long-term strategy is.
Right. Yeah. So you might have to take something you're not used to doing or that you don't like doing to get started.
Yeah.
And then move into something you're more comfortable with.
Yeah. Or sometimes we just have to tweak it a little bit. Like, so I have somebody that I coached for years, and she's a top producing real estate agent in Colorado Springs. Strong introvert, man. I mean, this lady will not have customer appreciation parties. If you Google her, she does not have a web page. She does not have a Facebook account, okay? She is an introvert, okay? So I started working with her, and we identified that she's an introvert T on the thinking, so she's thinking, and then she's a J on her execution. So you just give her the roadmap, she's going to move with the roadmap, man. She's rarely going to question it. Got a little bit of pushback from her, but not much. But what I teach her how to do is how to convert expired listings. Now, a lot of people would think an introvert wouldn't do well on the phone. She kills it. But her main focus is she's thinking about how can I, oh no, I take that back. She's a feeler, not thinker. How can I help the next person? How can I help the next person? How can I find the next person to help? And that's all she thinks about, right? But for her, that face-to-face connection, she doesn't enjoy that, right?
Right.
She likes helping them through the process, and she does 50 deals a year.
Right. Yeah, I've always been a phone sales person. My whole career. I've never been a face-to-face guy. Like my buddies are like, "Oh, come sell copiers," and I'm like, "No, that's not that doesn't sound fun to me. I don't want to go bugging people business to business, face to face when I can just call them and they can tell me to go away if they don't want to listen to me."
Yeah.
It's a lot harder for people to do that when you're face to face. To be like, "Nope, I don't want to talk to you about copiers." But
which is funny because I would much rather get rejected face to face than over the phone.
Right.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Like for some reason, the phone, I can do it, but it's definitely like a dagger. It's like, oh, with face to face, I don't even think anything of it. I'm just gonna go, okay, next. I'll go to the next house.
Right. Yeah, I've always been in the phone. I got into phone sales because we worked at this little call center when I was a teenager, and they're like, "We want you to call these alumni at this university and ask them for donations." Yeah. And I'm like, "Okay, well, that's boring." And so they're like, "But if they donate $100, we're going to give them a brick and we're going to put whatever they want on it and we're going to pave a pathway through the college."
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I'm like, "Well, that's kind of cool." So what I started doing was selling bricks. I didn't even ask for the $20 donation or the $50 donation. I just started calling people and be like, "Hey, dude, think about this. $100. I'm going to put whatever you want on a brick. 20 years from now, you can have your kid go to that college. They're going to see your name right there in the pathway. How cool is that?" They're like, "Oh, that is cool. I'll do that." So I just started racking them up, and the college called the company that I work for, and they're like, "What is he doing?" Like he's got more bricks and $100 donations than the entire anybody's ever done all combined. And so they're like, "We want to listen to him." And I'm like, "Oh, all right." So that's kind of where I found my niche, for phone sales. It was like, you're supposed to be just calling people and asking them for money. But I was like, well, that's boring. No one's going to want to just give away money to their college.
Yeah. I'll argue with you. You weren't selling the brick. You were selling the memory.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I told them. Like, you can bring your kids here and be like, "Hey, check this out. I graduated 1986. There it is, right in the pathway."
Yeah, absolutely, man.
People ate that up, man.
You sold that brick too cheap.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, you guys could have got $200-300 out of that brick.
You totally could have. Yeah, for sure.
So, now that pathway, I think it was Keene University, somewhere in the Northeast. But yeah, I thought
you didn't even go there. I thought it was like your alma mater.
No. It was just like I said, I was working for some company as a teenager, and it was a telemarketing company, and that was their customer was the university. Get us some donations, and that's what we did. So that's kind of where I found my preference to do phone sales, and do it easier for me to hear no over the phone than whatever. But in person, opposite of you, I would feel like a dagger. In person, I'd be like, "No, I don't want none of your crap. Get out of here."
They throw the brick at you.
Right.
Literally.
Take your brick.
Don't forget your brick. Yeah, that's funny. My favorite technique for sure, because if my Myers-Briggs preference is I'm an ENTP, so extroverted, intuitive, big picture. I solve my problems with logic, although people think I'm a feeler, right? So I present myself as empathetic and compassionate and feeling, but I confuse people because it's not how I make my decisions. I make my decisions based on logic. And then P is the perceiving side of me, so I'm creative, right? So I have to modify it. I have to do it my own way. I have to have my DNA in things. I have to tweak and change, which makes me kind of a challenge in an organization, right? Like I work for different organizations over the years, and I've just learned I'm not a great employee, right?
Right, because they're like, "Hey, here is the blueprint. All you have to do is follow A through Z, and you're going to sell 40 deals a month." And you're like, "Well, I don't know if I like G. That's kind of dumb. And M is a little silly. So we're going to make that and switch that." And they're like, "No, you don't understand. This is the strategy."
Yeah. What's even more interesting about it is I would get 200 sales, right? They'd say, "Oh, you got to get 40. I get 200. But the way I got to 200, they couldn't duplicate because it was so creative or so nuanced. And in a larger organization, they don't want that, right? Because they want duplication. So it's
they want to duplicate everything. Yeah, same with me. We used to sell to car dealerships and another company I worked for, and people would just call a car dealership, and I'm like, why are you wasting your time calling car dealership? Call the people that own 20 dealerships.
Yeah.
Like your sales goal for the month is 12. Well, guess what? I got mine in the first week because I just sold a guy that has 20 dealerships, and I got 20 deals. And you guys are working to get your 12 by making 7,000 times more calls than I had to make to get there. Yeah. And then everybody was like, "Oh, I want to try that." And the boss is like, "No, don't. No, that's not that." Like you said, it's not duplicatable because I went after the top guys in the organization where someone else may not have that ability to find them, track them down, talk to them, and feel comfortable talking to them, and getting that. So they're like, "No, don't don't do what Mitch does. He only made 10 calls today. I want you making 60 calls today."
Isn't that funny? It's so true.
And that was exactly the same way that my career went. They're like 60 dials, and I'm like, "Well, I made 10 dials," and they're like, "But I got 12 sales." And they're like, "So I mean, what's the big deal?"
Yeah, and then they don't want to give you an award, right? Because I remember like getting brushed across the stage, right? They're like, "It's Sean Moudry. Get him off.
Get him out of here.
Get him off before he says something."
Yeah, we don't want other people acting like him.
Or they give you a script and they say, "Just read this. Just read." Don't
this
tell
is
them
what I want you to say.
Don't
I
tell
did
them
good,
how it really
but don't
works.
do what I do.
It's so true. It's so, and it's funny because we were talking about a mutual friend of ours that we had, and I was coaching a mortgage broker at the time, and I went to a national mortgage broker event, and they had all the top mortgage brokers walking across the stage, and I'm sitting next to my coaching client. She wasn't actually my client at the time, but she was soon going to be. And I said to her, I nudged her and I said, "Why aren't you on that stage?" And she says, she goes, "Well, I don't know why." And I said, "You need to be on that stage. We're going to get you on that stage," right? Because it was like the top 5 people, right? And so that night we go to Morton's. We go out to Morton's for dinner. I got the Wagyu, right? And I was like, "I'm getting the Wagyu. Yeah, that's going to be awesome." And sure enough, I look across the room and there's number 1 and number 2 from that stage, right? So I get up with my Wagyu steak and I walk over to their table and I set it down, dink, and I sit down and I go, "Hey, I want to introduce myself. I'm Sean." And they go, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a real estate coach. And, I coach real estate agents, mortgage brokers. And I saw you walked across the stage. So tell me the truth. How you doing it?" Because I know whatever they say in a classroom, right? Whatever they say on stage isn't always the truth because they have their own competitors in their area that are watching.
Right.
I'm coaching an agent 2,000 miles away. She's not going to compete with them. It's not going to be a problem. So he literally starts saying, do this, this is what we do. This, and I say, "Well, how do you fix this? How do you go from here to here? How do you fix this?" Because when you're dealing with the application to the processor, back to the LO, and you're like all this jumping around, and I'm like, this process is a mess. I mean, mortgage can get so intertwined, right?
Right.
And I'm like, "Well, how do you fix this? How do you fix this?" So he literally draws it out for me, lays it out. I go, "Man, awesome, thank you." I grab my Wagyu steak. I walk back over to my client, and I sit down, and I go, "Okay, this is what we're going to do."
This is how you do it.
Next year, she was number 5 nationally for that company, number 5 in the entire nation.
That's awesome.
And then the guy I had Wagyu with, I started coaching him, the number 2 guy, to beat the number 1 guy.
Nice.
Well, but my point is on that is that creativity is it's a gift, but it's a curse, right? I mean, it is a double-edged sword because there are how many times, I'm sure you've experienced this, that somebody said, "Just follow the plan," and you had to tweak it and change it. Guilty. Didn't get the results, and then had to go back and just follow the plan.
Right. Yeah, I've had that happen before myself. And it reminds me too, you got to have the right leader if you're going to have people like that on your team, you got to have the right leadership to let them do their thing. and, make other people understand that that's not necessarily the way to do it. And, for example, I was watching The Last Dance about the Bulls, and I just finished that up, and Phil Jackson, was a perfect example because he had Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
And Dennis Rodman was like, hey, I need time off.
Yeah.
He's like, I need a vacation. He's like, and Michael's like, in the middle of the season? Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, Phil's like, okay, you got 48 hours. But, that turned into like 5, 6, 7 days, And then later on, they won a game, and then he went to WWF and wrestled.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell anybody. And they're like, is he in trouble? And Phil's like, well, you just don't understand him. He needs that. And we know he'll come back and be a better performer. He'll get fined. He's not going to get suspended. He's not going to get in trouble with me. But, he will get fined for not being here for practice. But, he understood that being strict on him wasn't going to change his personality and what he needed to become the beast that he was on the court.
Yeah, I think that's funny you bring that up, because I have a chapter in the book where I talk about a leader I had, and he gave me a lot of flexibility and a lot of autonomy, and he let me fail. And he would say, I wouldn't do that. And I say, well, I'm gonna do it anyways. So, if I did it, are you gonna fire me, or are we gonna be okay? And he goes, no, you can do it. He's like, it's just not gonna work. So I go out, I do it. Didn't work. I go back and I'm like, that didn't work. But I also built 2 processes for him. He owned 5 brokerages, and I built 2 processes for him that brought his 5 brokerages from, average brokerages nationally to some of the top brokerages in the state. And it was a couple processes that I figured out that if he didn't give me that leeway to test and try and put a little bit of money into this and tweak this, and if he didn't give me that leeway, he wouldn't have had the success that he had long term.
Right.
So, it is a give and take, and an understanding your people. Right.
Right. Yeah. Leadership is about understanding and, figuring out how to motivate and reward everyone differently, because nobody is, like you said, nobody is the same. That's for sure.
Which is such an interesting concept, right? Like this concept of fairness versus equity, right? So fairness is everybody's treated exactly the same, right?
Right.
Equity is some people have strengths and weaknesses and blind spots, right? They have gifts or talents, and they also have disabilities and less gift areas. So equity is this concept of, hey, I'm going to give these people what they need so they can perform at the same level as somebody who already has these other things, right? But then fairness kicks in. Well, why did they get that? Like for me, autonomy or flexibility in my schedule is great. Like if I can take Fridays off,
right,
awesome, right? But that was not fair to other people.
Right. Yeah, I dealt with that a lot in my sales career as well. The supervisor would give you a little bit more flexibility and, maybe upset some other people that didn't have that same flexibility. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think some of it, right? I think some of it is have an intuition to know when you're dealing with somebody that will perform better with some different structure, right? Let's call it. Yeah, and then give them the chance to earn that path, right? Like, okay, we'll try this for, like what they say now, like 45% of workers are going to work from home, right? 45%.
That's wild.
There's some people that are not going to function well at home.
Yeah, right.
Discipline, right? And then you have people that are going to perform extremely well at home, right?
Yep.
So that's going to be an interesting shift in our economy, our workforce.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right, man. Well, this has been great. I appreciate you joining us. Tell the audience how they can find your book, because I know it's something people should definitely check out. Yeah.
So it's on Amazon. It's on Audible and Amazon. And if you want to take your Myers-Briggs, it's actually not a full Myers-Briggs. So it's a 16 strategies assessment that will give you your 16 strategy sales strategy. You can go to 16strategies.com, 16strategies.com. And if you want to reach out to me and have some conversation about a validation and identifying the lead generation strategy that's right for you, let's have that conversation.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you, like I said, joining us, and hopefully we can learn more about the 16 strategies here in the future, because I know people definitely want to know more. So
Sounds
I
good.
appreciate it again.
Thank you, sir. It was nice to see you again, Mitch.
Yeah, you too.
See ya.